Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The two disciples recounted what had taken place on the way, and how Jesus was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. While they were still speaking about this, he stood in their midst and said to them, "Peace be with you." But they were startled and terrified, and thought they were seeing a ghost. Then he said to them again, "Why are you troubled? And why do you arise in your heart? Look at my hands and my feet. That it is I myself. Touch me and see, because a ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you can see I have." And as he said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. While they were still incredulous for joy and were amazed, he asked them, "Have you anything here to eat?" They gave him a piece of baked fish. He took it and ate it in front of them. And he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and in the prophets and Psalms must be fulfilled." Then he opened their minds to understand the Scriptures. And he said to them, "Thus it is written that the Christ would suffer and rise from the dead on the third day, and that repentance for the forgiveness of sins would be preached in his name to all the nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Have you ever bumped into someone and found out that it's someone you know? Maybe it's been years or months since you've seen each other, but you're embarrassed as they call your name because you didn't recognize them. This has happened to me recently, probably in reverse, because I've lost some weight. People apologize and say, "I didn't recognize you." It has happened the other way for me also, as I know I grow older, but I don't think others do. When we think of the times this happens to us, it's not so strange to think about the two disciples in the Gospel today not recognizing the risen Christ. Their minds were on the events of the encounter that they were discussing. So suddenly seeing someone in their midst startled them. Their minds were not focused. Let me test your minds. Don't worry, this isn't a quiz or some mind game experience. It's one simple, well, maybe two simple questions. First, were you here Easter Sunday? And do you remember my homily, or did you watch it on our website? I said in my homily, 3 words changed everything. Do you remember them? He is risen. Yes, those 3 words changed everything. But the true change comes when you absolutely believe that he has risen. Last week in the Gospel, we heard that the risen Christ came into a room where the windows and doors were locked. The disciples were gathered in that room because of fear for what had happened to Jesus. Fear that same fate would await them. Jesus' presence changes their fear into joy. They rejoiced when they saw the Lord. The risen Christ changed everything. This week, we again hear that the risen Christ appeared to 2 disciples and turns their fear of seeing a ghost into joy and amazement. The risen Christ changes everything. He changes darkness into light, fear into hope, inactivity into action. The risen Christ is in our midst now, saying, "Fear not." The risen Christ is in our midst now, urging us to put aside our fears. The risen Christ is in our midst now, urging us to embrace each new day of our lives with the spirit of hope. The risen Christ is in our midst now, urging us to trust in God's promise to ultimately prevail over every conceivable evil. The risen Lord is in our midst now, offering us the peace of mind and heart and soul to cast out all fear. When our fears are conquered, we move freely. We move into relationships, meaningful relationships. We come to realize that God truly lives in the lives of our brothers and our sisters. I asked God to take away my pride, and God said no. God said it was not for him to take away, but for me to give it up. I asked God to give me patience, and God said no. God said that patience is a byproduct of tribulation. It's not granted, it's earned. I asked God to give me happiness, and God said no. God said he gives me blessings. Happiness is up to me. I asked God to spare me pain, and God said no. God said suffering draws you apart from worldly cares and brings you closer to me. I asked God to make my spirit grow, and God said no. God said I must grow on my own, but God will prune me and make me fruitful. I asked God if he loved me, and he said yes. God said he gave his only son who died for me, and I will be in heaven one day because he died for me. So I asked God to help me love others as much as he loves me. And God said, finally you have the idea. God continues to make the miracle of the empty tomb present in the caring, the compassion, and the love that we receive and that we give. The love we have witnessed in the suffering of Christ. A love that triumphs over death. A love that gives us hope in times of despair, grief, and doubt. He is risen, changes everything. Peace be with you.